Good morning, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you on this public consultation webinar. Today, we're talking about the Belgian Forest Certification System. My name is Hubert Inhäuser. I'm a technical officer at PEFC International, and I'm happy to be your host for today's webinar. As usual, we have three agenda items in the program. First, you will hear a short introduction from my side for those who are not that familiar with the PEFC framework. And then I will hand it over to Samuel Oldenhof from PEFC Belgium, who will guide us through a detailed presentation on the Belgian Forest Certification System. And at the end, of course, we will have time for questions and answers. So let's begin. PEFC stands for Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification Systems. We are an alliance of national forest certification systems under the umbrella of PEFC International. All of these national forest certification systems are based on PEFC sustainability benchmark standards, or they adopt the international standards like the chain of custody. Well, this is a voluntary mechanism promoting sustainable forest management through independent third-party certification. We are very proud that we are the world's largest forest certification system and provider of 3/4 of the world's certified and sustainably managed timber. On this map, you can see your global coverage. Well, you see that in Europe, we have quite significant numbers, and Belgium is contributing to that with 267 chain of custodies and roughly around 300,000 hectares of certified forests. Now, the Belgian system was submitted back in May for assessment. The PEFC assessment will be carried out by an independent assessor, yet to be appointed. And part of this assessment, there is a 60 days international public consultation period, which is opened today. On this link, you are able to access the complete Belgian Forest Certification System documentation, and you are welcome to submit any comments on the system as a stakeholder. Please note that we strongly encourage everyone to comment on these systems because all of these comments submitted to PEFC International during this consultation process will be considered by the assessor during the assessment report. The 60 days, so today we opened it, and the last day we are ready to accept your comments is 1st of December. So remember by 1st of December to submit your comment if you have any. And after this short introduction, I'm very happy that I have Samuel with me here today, and I'm happy to invite him to deliver his presentation on the Belgian Forest Certification System. I stop sharing my screen, and the floor is yours, Samuel.
Thank you very much. I must first see if it works. Do you see the presentation in full, or do you see nothing yet?
Not yet.
So this is screen 2. It's screen 1. I need to share. Partager. Yes. Do you see it now?
There we are. Yes, I can see the mushrooms. Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. Just to give maybe a little introduction of who we are, where we are situated. We see so in the map of Europe where Belgium is situated. So we are a national, non-for-profit and non-governmental organization within Belgium, which we operate on a national level. But as you know, Belgium has a quite complex structure in terms of administration and politics, with 3 regions: Brussels, Flanders, and Wallonia. But we work on a national level. Secondly, we have 11 board members in a 5-chamber model. We have 4 employees, and we have 24 members from different chambers in the 5-chamber model. Are to promote sustainable forest management by setting up sustainable forestry management standards, by promoting COC as an outcome of forest products and promoting sustainable sourcing from forest to end users like retailers, like architects, and also end consumers. In short, we are in PEFC Belgium is 305,000 certified hectares. And well, you were speaking about certificates in terms of companies, because you've got group certification. We have 505 COC companies. 53% of the Belgian forest is SFM certified, and 91% of the SFM certified forest is PEFC certified. So quite a high number for PEFC there. As agenda, I will make you an introduction to Belgian forestry, and it's quite important to understand also the context in which we are evolving. The second part will be about the PEFC Belgium scheme, then thirdly the development process, and then also what we like to do is also talk about the difficulties we met during the revision process as like an internal audit of what we've done and how it worked. Maybe in short, about the Belgian forestry. So as you know, we are in a federal country, with 3 regions. The forestry legislation is the responsibility of the regions. So there is one legislation for forest in Flanders, one legislation for forest in Brussels, and one legislation for forest in Walloon. As we now have only set up SFM standards for the Walloon region. And I maybe understand very quickly in this little graph here by, well, you see the map first of all of Belgium with the forests. Well, you see that Brussels has only 2,200 hectares of forests, and Flanders has 140,000, and Walloon has 563,000. Coverage, which is very different from region to region. In Brussels, it's 14%, in Flanders, 10%, and then in Walloon, 33%. The other numbers, and you see that's also here the 4 last columns between public forests and private forests. The proportions are very different. For example, in Brussels, it's 95% of public forests. In Flanders, it's 36, and in Walloon, it's 49. And you see that the private forests are respectively for Brussels 5%, for Flanders 64%, and then Walloon 51. So it's quite a different structure, and it explains also how forestry evolved and also and over time and what are the implications it has. And then you've got also the difference between deciduous trees and coniferous trees here in the last 2 columns. So as I said, Flanders, no PEFC SFM standards. In Brussels, no PEFC SFM standards neither. In Walloon, we have PEFC. Maybe a focus on forestry in Walloon and of the history of forests in Walloon. Well, in minus 50,000, the Walloon forest is made of deciduous trees that were gradually established after the Ice Age. So in minus 15,000, it was first a tundra, and then it moved to like deciduous trees. In minus 8,000 and to minus 5,500, it's the first moment there were people settling in the Walloon territory, and there was an evolution. And this evolution was also linked to the Roman Empire, and where you see that the map that deforestation, well, making clear lands was linked to the roads that were of the Roman Empire. From 600 to 1400 after Jesus Christ, the era of intensive land clearing came to an end at the end of the Middle Ages. But at that period in time, the metallurgic industry and so pressure on the resource in Belgium. As you may know, the metallic industry in Belgium was very, very, very high, and we have a great history of that, and that has put quite a lot of pressure on forests, as well as mines and coal mines until the 1960s. From 1840 to 1860, the forest area continued to decline to its minimum at that moment. And as from 1854, there was a forestry code and the implementation of a genuine forestry policy that encouraged the reforestation of the least productive agricultural lands, etc. So there was a real reforestation program at that moment in time. Here, maybe in a number of dates, what you see is that so in 1866, it's at minimum. We have region 347,000 hectares, and then it grew up till now. Maybe to give another idea of what happened, so the forests were clear cutted quite a lot until the Middle Ages. In the 19th century, there were another 136,000 hectares that were clear cutted, and the old semi-natural forest, so it's really a semi-natural forest, always been planted forests in Belgium. They were transformed into coniferous trees, and then there were leaf trees, caduceus trees that were planted in the 19th, in the 20th, and then again coniferous trees in the 20th century, which gives us now the 563,000 hectares of forests in Belgium, in Walloon, sorry. So there is quite a lot of history about clear cuttings, but also by plantations and reforestation. To give maybe a little idea of how the forest is reparted in a few types of owners, as I said, like public forest, 49% in Walloon and 51% private forests. You see also that the stands are very different. So the numbers are all from 2018, and it is still in the same trend, I would say. The public forest, we've got 38% of conifers or softwood trees and 61% of hardwood trees. For the private forest, it's quite different. And this is also linked to the rentability of forests, where private forests, foresters tend to look on a shorter term than public forests, where you see that there is a bigger percentage of softwoods in the private forests. The main stands of the productive forest, and so what I say, you've got 563,000 hectares, what we call productive forests. So these represent 480,000 hectares. So in these productive forests, the main stands are oaks, beech, and mix of beech and oak, and then other represent quite 25%. And then in the coniferous trees, you've got spruce, Douglas, and then a mix of spruce and Douglas, and then other softwoods. And the last 2%, it's not blanking, it's what we call clear cuts. To make it short about the timber industry in Wallonia, it's 0.1% of the Walloon GDP. It represents 8,171 companies and roughly 18,431 jobs. If we look at the broader level in Belgium, it's around 71,000 people that work from the wood industry on a large scale. In terms of harvest, so we harvest 4 million cubic meters a year, and the wood consumption for lumber and industrial wood is about 5.8 million cubic meter a year, and energy wood is 2.7 million tons a year. So if you calculate well, we are net nowadays, and this is to be continued for the moment, as we don't have enough forest to cover our needs. Maybe a very focused detail on the structure of private forest owners. You see that here in light green, sorry, I'm colorblind, and in orange, if I'm not wrong, in light green, it's the number of owners that there are. And in orange is the number of surfaces they represent, and from classification from 0.5 hectares to more than 500 hectares. And you see that the property, private property in Belgium is in Wallonia is really scattered, and which can also lead to difficulties to sustainably manage a forest. We know the reasons why. Maybe to to introduce a bit the forestry pressures that there are for the moment in Wallonia. Well, from intensive forestry, which we know is environmentally unfavorable, to mixed forestry, which is environmentally friendly. So mixed forestry with irregular structure, mix of species, presence of stepped edge, operations per tree, and recent mechanization. We see that, and due to the history of the forest in Belgium, the structural diversity is quite important, and we see that the 55% of the stands have a regular structure, and 45% of the stands have an irregular structure. I must say this evolved quite a lot in the last 10 years. So in 2008, the irregular structure was only 33%, and the regular structure was 67%. So it's really getting better. Specific diversity of population of stands, with 1 or 2 species, it went from 70% with 1 or 2 species to 57% in the last 10 years, and from 30% to 43% with 3 or more species, 3 species. Tiered edges, it's present in 41% of all stands that were analyzed. Pressures that are external to silviculture, I forgot here 2 points. Deadwood, actually we have measured 10 cubic meter a hectare and 0.65 deadwood per dead trees per hectare in public forests. The operating rate from 2004 to 2017 is 102%, and I'm going to explain where does it come from. And then 2 other pressures on forestry is the clear cutting, and then the second part, which is very and which were also addressed in our standards. External pressure to silviculturists. The first part is the overpopulation of wild ungulates. So between 1985 and 2020, the population, for example, of wild boar increased by 14%. Increased well, severely, times 14. Sorry, not the times. And we see that there is more and more damages. So from 2008 to 2015, we saw that there were damages on 21% of the forest stands, and especially, well, 41% of surfaces with natural regeneration and 53% in new planted forests. We see also that there is quite a lot of tourism, so 113 million visits a year. We see climate change, and I think everyone here in Europe has that the forests are suffering with dryness and climate change. A good measure is air pollution. Well, we are far away from the 1990s, where we had acid rains. These dropped from 67 to 6% of eutrophying nitrogen, so that's a very good thing. And then pests and pathogens, excuse me for the noise. We have the bar beetle, which arrived, and you know that there are quite of diseases affecting or major tree species in Europe, like for the ash tree, etc. So that is things that need to be taken into account as well. Maybe a little focus on the operating rate and harvesting rate in Belgium. As you see, we compared to other regions and other regions, that's the rate of harvesting. In Wallonia, we are at 102%. But this comes essentially through spruce trees. And well, you see, for example, here in green, it's the tree growth and in terms of cubic meters, and the gray area is the harvesting. So for poplars, for ash trees, for oaks and beeches, we see that the harvesting is lower than its growth. and the same for coniferous trees. But spruce trees, we have a very high harvesting rate, and this is essentially linked to also to history as well. Is all the stands that were planted in just after the Second World War, which are now coming to maturity. This is also excluding also the fact that the bar beetle has also a huge impact on harvesting rate. As you know, we need to take them out of the forest to avoid further dissemination of the pest. If we look at the state of the forests, forests which are considered in unfavorable states, we see that, and this is a bit going down, especially linked to climate change. Improvement is of the herbaceous species. We see that there is an increase in that. The forest birds, and I think it's everywhere in Europe, are going down between 1990 and 2020. The biodiversity, we know it's quite a crisis, goes down by 20%. And then here, that's defoliation. Defoliation, we see that for hardwoods, it went down from 34% of the trees that having abnormal defoliation to 25%. But we see that it increased from 30 to 60% for softwoods, and especially due to bar beetle. So yeah, that's very clear. What we called all-grown forests. All-grown forests are forests that we identified, and I can go back a few slides earlier to the maps of Ferraris. So present at the maps of Ferraris, and we have 33% of the surface cover, which is all-grown forests. So the forest management there are a few legal instruments, which is the Forestry Code, secondly the Nature Conservation Act, and then the Hunting Act. The management measure common to private and public forest. Well, we have that's the state-owned Department for the Control of Forests, which has fined 3,373 times in 2019. We've got the forest certification, as the repartition is 91% of public forests are certified and 11% of private forests are certified. So we have quite a lot of work in terms of promoting it to private owners. The protection of the forest environment, 27% of the Walloon forest is under Natura 2000. In hunting, 15% of the shooting quotas are not met between 2011 and 2020. This is linked to two major causes. And the first one is that the fines, if you don't meet them, are too low. And so some hunters might tend to try to keep a big stock. And on the other side, in some regions, it went very well. The number of deers went down, and the quotas are too high compared to the number of deers that are present. There is also quite a lot of monitoring of the health of forests on the state level. And then there is also some research programs that are actualized that help foresters to choose the good tree for the good stand with the good, climate and soil analysis. So it helps a lot in terms of resilience to have the good trees in the good stands. Here, specific tools, the forest management plans to PEFC and to the PEFC standards, they are meeting 100% or have a forest management plan. But regarding some other laws, the Nature Conservation Act, they should have a full public consultation. And so for the moment, 45% has a full public consulted management plan. And the target by 2023 is 100%. For private forests, there is quite a lot of supports in terms of management, but also management plan supports to create them, as they're not legally obligatory. So the challenges are, well, ensure responsible and reasoned management of hunting, and continue the transition to sustainable forestry based on a multifunctional approach, and also the fact of diversifying the forest in order to increase the resilience. And then inform and raise awareness among forest owners. As I said, like the forest in private forest owners is very scattered, and so people even don't know that they have a forest, and that is a really problem for sustainably for managing sustainably a forest. I hope until now I haven't overloaded you with too much of information, but I'm going on. I don't know if we take all the questions afterwards or during the session. I propose to do it at the end of the session. I will go over to the second part, which is the PEFC Belgium scheme, and with focus on changes. Considering the Belgian context and political context, the PEFC Belgium scheme has been established as a plug-in system. So as you remember, we only have sustainable forest management standards for Wallonia. We haven't developed them for Flanders, neither for Brussels yet. And so we have foreseen a scheme which can easily help to plug different standards in the scheme. So the requirements applicable to all forest owners, managers and operators, as well as the to TOF owners and managers when they are in a group certification. And then the requirements applicable to the Walloon forest owners at group and individual level, and also to forest operators when they work in certified forests. So the 1002 is applicable for everyone nationally. The 1003 is applicable at the Walloon region level only. And we have the possibility to develop SFM requirements for the other regions and also for trees outside of forests, which we didn't do due to lack of time. The biggest change as well is that we aligned totally our documentation with PEFC International. Identification of each document has been adapted to the numbering of PEFC International. The structure of each document has been improved in order to have a clear objective scope and document history. And then each document has now a validation date, a date of application, a transition period, and a next evaluation really on terms of structure. How it works and or scheme, for example, I'm a group certification within a region, and here, for example, in Wallonia, I have access to the general documentation of the different standards. I have to comply with the requirement of group certification. I will have to require with the 1003, so the SFM certification for XX being the region, so Wallonia, Flanders, or Brussels, and forest, or T means for forestry or for trees outside of forest. I will have to comply also with the requirement for the use of the logo if I want to use the logo. And I should know of the PEFC 2002 requirements of the certification of sustainable forest management, etc. And the same exercise can be done for each actor of the forest certification. Just to give you an idea of the high-level structure, and it's where you can see, well, the different documents that we're talking about are applicable to all of them. They have access to it, and then according to the region where they are, they have to comply with the 1003, etc. Or for chain of custody management, they will have to comply with the 2002. Changes in the structure of the Walloon regional sustainable forestry standards. The structuration for the 1003 has been changed. In 3 chapters: a domain related to the certificate holder, the organization, alignment of the requirements with the requirements of the PEFC ST 1002, and then a domain related to the planification activities that are divided into the forest owner shall and the forest owner may. And then a domain related to the implementation, divided into the forest owner shall and the forest operator shall. This is really important. Why we divided the planification and the implementation is really to help. What is my long-term vision, and then what do I do on the ground when I'm operating in the forest, or putting into action my plan. There are In the SFM standards, there are several editorial changes that have been implemented in order to clarify the requirements. And then important changes have been implemented onto the next chapter. I will explain. Obligations applicable to the organization and the certificate holder. So we aligned that with all the international requirements and the requirements related to forest owners who participate to the certification. The conversion of forests in non-forest area and reforestation of non-forested areas. Planning in simple management plans or forest management plans. We aligned that also with the international requirements, which were quite a huge increase since the last revision. And then the prevention and management of damage due to the overpopulation of large ungulates. Considering the audits of the period 2013-2019, the high risk related to this item, this item has been strongly revised. And then in terms of implementation, the forest operator shall is alignment with international requirements related to the forest operators. Maybe I'm going over here to how PEFC Belgium works and how so the normalization part or standardization part is made, and then how we go to the implementation. So sorry. We have a board of PEFC with a five-chamber model, which is controlled by a general assembly, as in all organizations. Creates the forum for the standard revision, and this was also a five-chamber model with 23 members. That can create thematic task forces to and that they validate and create in order to advance in their work. Once this is done, there is a public consultation, days, which when finalized, analyzed by the forum, it's sent back to the board. The board goes to the General Assembly for endorsements, and then it's sent to PEFC International for endorsements. Once the process is finalized, the forum is, there is a dissolution of the forum, and we submit the senders to the regional entities that wish to be certified. So this is for SFM. And we have created here, as I said, a plugin system. It can either be a regional certification or group certification. So each group that wants to set up a group can set up a group. There is also regional certification foreseen. Nowadays is done by the DNF. DNF is like the public administration for forestry, which is the group certification within a regional certification, and the Société Royale Forestière for the private owners. They have to write an improvement plan, and they have to consult also their stakeholders regarding this. They have participants, and they draft like conditions for access and what the forest owner has to do to comply and to enter into the group the regional certification or the group certification. They do, of course, internal audits. It is followed by ECOSET as a certifying body, which is then followed by COFRAC, which is then followed by the EAF. Very important, there is a strict separation between internal audits, group certification, and PEFC Belgium. From country to country it differs, but here in Belgium it's really, we have no legal bonds with the group certification. Hopefully till now it goes well. I will give maybe a short update about the revision process. The revision process, we have support. We requested to a standard specialist with experience in PEFC and forest management, which was Jean-Charles Le Viron. There was support received from roles and responsibilities, and see how we could work in a modus of deep democracy. As you know, consensus, transparency, and consultation of stakeholders is the core values of PEFC, and we really wanted to respect that. The support received also from an internal auditor to verify compliance with the PEFC International process, but also in terms of normative documents. And then presentations and minutes of the meetings were shared with all the participants via Dropbox environment, where everyone had access to the whole documentation permanently and at each moment. The revision process was quite long, and especially also due to the COVID circumstances. But maybe to give an overview over the timing. So the PEFC ST 2003 was published in 2018. We had from there 1 year to start and so first of all, we did a gap analysis of the PEFC documentation and etc. We made a presentation of the process to the board with a stakeholder mapping and an invitation to the forum, and plus a stakeholder consultation. So we went very far, and we asked for everyone to submit their candidature for this forum. We did an information session with all these people on the 21st of June 2021, and then they had until September to submit their candidacy. Then we created the forum, and then we did what we call a quotation of criteria. I'm going to explain it later on what it is. And we were analyzing the feedback of 2013, 2019 until December 2019. We really started the revision of the standard as from December 2019 until March 2022. With a public consultation or final forum and or validation at the General Assembly at in April 2022. Validation of the documents, and then we did in May 2022 a submission to PEFC International, and we are now in an ongoing process of endorsement. Participants to the forum were very broad. So as I said, 5-chamber model. With ENGOs, with research, training centers, and scientific organization. We have forest owners and managers. We had wood chain representatives and forest users as well. Here also a name, but you see there was really a look after a well-balanced representation of different organizations. And as you may know, no party may dominate the process, so we really looked after that. The revision process, as inputs of the revision process, there was first the analysis of the requirements of PEFC International, so the standards PEFC ST 2002, 2003, but also 2001, etc. We made analysis based on the PEFC International criteria. We did like an evaluation of the period 2013-2019 with all the audits and the improvement plans of the organizations, improvements realized and difficulties met. And then the stakeholder consultation in July 2019, there was a first stakeholder consultation prior to the process. And then the update of all the normative documents of PEFC Belgium. This led to the revision of the forest management standards for the Walloon region in the forum and thematic task forces, as I explained. Maybe to come back to the risk analysis based on the PEFC International criteria. Each criteria of Chapter 8 of 2003 has been analyzed based on 4 criteria. What was the impact over time? What was the occurrence of it? What was the control? And what was the containment of it? And according from 1 to 4, these were quoted. And the 4 criteria are multiplied to give a rating from 0 to 6. And a high quotation means it had to be taken into account. It's significant, and we need to address it in the working groups and in the forum. So this was a way for us to really conceptualize, but also identify where there were problems. For example, here it was the 8.1.1, the first criteria is the diminishing of forest areas in Wallonia. Well, impact over time, once it's cut, it's forever. So it's a 4. It happens very few times. We have a great control over it, and the containment is very small. So it gives a quotation of 4. And here, for example, it's about reduction of cultural value of the in a stand, for example. Well, if, for example, there were like Roman tombs, which can happen, and we see that in they're gone. We don't see them anymore. Because in Wallonia it's not very well known. It happens often, and we have no we have no control over it, and so that's a reason which this 265 led to, for example, bringing a real presentation and cartography of cultural value in management plans, in order to prevent that kind of things. Then there was the evaluation. The second point of entry, there was the evaluation of the period 2013-2019, where there was audits and improvement plan, internal audits and improvement plans. For the improvement plan, what we saw that was a recurrent in the previous period. There was a recurrent confusion between the implementation of the improvement plan and the definition of the regional forestry policy by all stakeholders. So that's the first fall. The second problem was the responsibility given to the improvement plan allocated to members that were absent or not active in the PEFC group certification, and then lack of follow-up of the implementation. So we changed that as well. And then also the summary of the internal audits of the last 5 years was made available, to see also where the shortcomings were, where clarifications were needed in the standards when internal audits were done. And then the last part was the stakeholder consultation as entry input, and we had like 24 respondents to it, which helped us to identify requirements or importance of certain subjects by stakeholders. Here, for example, measures to enhance biodiversity. Well, diversified forest was a great one. Reduction of great ungulates was a very important one. And then everything concerning the linkage of forests between each other in turn, to have like an ecological chain. And then, for example, for the economical part, was to maintain so that's it basically. So the revision process, there were 2 public consultations, one at the beginning I just talked about, and one at the end of the revision process. There were 6 meetings with the whole audience of the 23 members. There was 1 working group meeting related to the evaluation and quotation of the risks of the Chapter 8. And then there were 5 thematic working groups established, and they met different times, maybe to take a few out of them. Well, maybe one especially is the forest game balance, which had like 8 meetings and extended multilateral meetings. It took, I think, just 1 year to get all the people to consensus. It was difficult, I must say, but we arrived to that, and we are happy with that. In terms of revision process, there were also 2 internal audits have been conducted by qualified ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 and 45001 auditor, to ensure that the Belgian scheme fulfills the requirement of the international standards, ensure the structure. And so we have like also internal audit reports about it. And now I'm going to finalize it with the last part of this webinar, is the return of experience gained during the process and the need to be capitalized for the next revision. I think the first, and I think everyone has met the same types of momentums. Due to the COVID-19 situation, there was a blended approach, face-to-face meetings, video conferences, and then blended meetings with several impacts. So first of all, it was difficult to reach a consensus during video conferencing, and difficulties for some stakeholders to use the tools, and so that's a lack of how you say participation. But we arrived to have everyone. A resistance of some stakeholders to participate in face-to-face because they were scaring for their health, which is totally normal. But so this all brought to difficulties. So the duration of the process was highly impacted, but also the quality. As you know, long Zoom meetings can be tiring and feeling like a waste of time because it's not easy to exchange ideas. Lessons learned, we'd hopefully there will be no other pandemic, but avoid the pandemic during the process. The question of the wording, Despite the initial communication and the reminders, several participants didn't understand their roles and the role of their organization in the process, and they acted like, I would say, really trade unionists instead of technical experts. So they were really digging themselves into positions, but and making consensus very difficult, reaching consensus very difficult. And we also see that there are quite a few participants missed competencies in terms of standard setting processes or even the understanding of the system. So even with repeats and trainings, we didn't arrive sometimes to bring them up. I think from our side, the next time we will more talk about the technical committee instead of a forum, because it will responsabilize people and invite experts recognized in the field of their expertise instead of asking for candidatures. But there will be like a bigger consultation than prior that will be treated by experts, but from each chamber. Administrative difficulties met. We had sometimes a few difficulties in writing the minutes of the meetings because the secretaries weren't always able to do it in time, and so there was sometimes delay. And also in terms of administrative rigorousness and structure of the documentation is something we really need to improve for the next time. Then regarding the content of the discussion, I think that's the really content, the damage due to overpopulation of large ungulates. We have and also owners, and there was no possibility to gain the consensus during the plenary meetings, and we had really to work with bilateral meetings organized by the chairman of PEFC and the forum with each of the participants to the thematic working group. There was pressure that has been made on some members of PEFC Belgium representatives threatening to leave the forum, and we had finally one organization that said like, if you don't do it like that, we just leave the forum. And we said, yes, this is your choice. It's unfortunate, and we still hope to reach consensus, but you cannot dominate the discussion. But finally, so we gained a consensus at the end. And so also the lessons learned here is, well, work with a technical committee on that kind of topics. And then the second topic was about windmills in forests, and which should have been regarded as, and it is also a conversion of forests and planted forests into plantations. Sorry, windmills in forests, and then the conversion of forests and planted forests in forests. It has been requested as a team for a thematic working group. After several meetings, we concluded to the inability to reach a consensus and escalated the issue to the board of directors of PEFC Belgium. And the board of directors said like, okay, we cancel this thematic task force, but it needs to respect the requirements of 2003 related to conversion. So as windmills is in fact a clear cutting with, well, a transformation from forest into non-forest areas. And also there is also a problem regarding the definition of conversion from documentation of PEFC International regarding the fact that in Belgium all the forests are planted forests, where there's no definition given by PEFC International, and that is also lesson learned. It's need to be a technical committee. So we arrive here at the end of this presentation, and I'm here open for any question regarding the process or whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Samuel, for this very detailed presentation. I must say, from all the webinars we had so far, I think the one which I would like to really mention, which stood out, I think this last part, I think this is something very important, that to reflect on those experiences, what you faced during the process. And I trust that maybe this webinar will be an example for others to do the same. But in whichever thing we do, I think this is something very important to have these lessons learned. And now the floor is open for questions, if there's any. I don't see anything for now, but I would say that it's really, it was a big chunk of information, so I'm certain that I will watch it one more time for sure to capture everything. And maybe until the others will think about questions, I would have one. that how many, do you know maybe that how many private forest owners do you cover through the certification, what you have in Wallonia? How many are in total?
Yes, so actually in terms of repartition, public forest is like 267, if I'm not wrong, but maybe it's 265 or 3. And for forest owner is roughly around 430. But it's very difficult to, and it's changing really regularly due to the fact that, as you may know, the transmission of forests is a complicated matter, especially in terms of taxes, etc. And so sometimes you have like owners that, well, the father just died, and then the mother, and the forests are transmitted, and then we need to recollect all the people that are from this with this person to make them re-sign the documentation and re-adhere to the standards and the process. So it's a really involving. It's difficult, I must say, for private forest owners. As in Belgium, the legislation is sometimes it's very free for private owners. They don't like much control over their forests, and so compared to other countries, I would say, for example, if I take an example in Germany or in Austria, I see that there almost everyone is certified or entering group certification. In Belgium, it's still like I prefer to keep my liberty well, on that topic.
Right. Well, thank you very much for this answer. It's indeed, I think, what is worth noting that it's very difficult, I think, to navigate in this complex legislative setup what you have in Belgium. But I would like to congratulate on your navigation skills that you managed to arrive to this point. That we are happy to step further into the assessment. I don't see any questions for now. So I would say myself that it was very well detailed. And with this, I would like to thank you, Samuel, and for the others who joined us today on this webinar for listening about all these details about the Belgian Forest Certification System. And we are looking forward again to welcome any comments if any stakeholder might have until 1st of December. Again, thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.